Good morning. So welcome to our second and fourth sessions talking about communication partner strategies. So some of you are here joining us for the live event, either on Teams or on the app. And just a reminder that if you would like to watch the pre-recorded sessions, there's two options. You can watch them if you're an SD44 employee. You can look in your calendar and there should be a thumbnail for the unedited version of the video right in that calendar event, but we're also posting these up to the YouTube channel, to the YouTube training videos playlist on our NBSD SLP account. So that's the QR code that'll take you directly there. So we had our first session on waiting. And there's just a couple people joining us live this morning, but how did it go? Waiting. When I wait, my child or student, I usually find that when I wait, especially if I've waited long enough, the child or the student realizes that it's their turn to communicate and they'll do something. It might start off with something fairly unconventional, right? Like it might be dropping something to communicate something, or even just rocking their body or something like that. But when I wait, I usually find that something happens. I usually wait, but I definitely am waiting longer now. Excellent, excellent. And do you have any comments on like what happens when you wait longer? Yeah, and I do find that some kids need a little bit more processing time, and it's important to sort of review that periodically. Like sometimes I've stopped waiting as long. Sometimes their processing time has gone up or down. And especially if there's like medication or something like that in play, then that can change how much wait time we need as well. Longer processing time and perhaps more response, but not always. Yeah, and it's, I think it's really important to acknowledge that this is not always, right? It's providing opportunities, and sometimes the opportunity will be taken and sometimes not, but it's important for us to provide the opportunities, right? I think that our kids rely on us to set the conversational pace, to really lead that conversation. And so it's really important for us to not take over and provide the space for our kids to communicate. So yeah, it's really important. It's okay that it's not always, right? It depends on the situation. If they're really hungry, then wait time is shorter. Yeah, any sort of motivation, right? If they're hungry, if they're having lots of fun, if it's something that's super preferred. And so that's an important factor too, right? Like if we're not seeing a response, then maybe this is the wrong thing. Like maybe I need to change things up a little bit. Yeah, great observations. So we are on session 2 this morning, and today we're going to be talking about giving choices. Okay, we're going to start with a video. It's really short. Hi, Kim. Do you want a snack? Here's an onion. So what did Reiko do wrong here? I came in and I said, do you want a snack? And before Kim even had a chance to say yes or no, I had a big box of snacks, right? And you couldn't really see, but it was full of donuts and cupcakes. I kind of didn't wait for her to answer. I kind of didn't give her any options. I just kind of like gave her something out of the box, right? Reiko doesn't wait for Kim to respond, and Reiko doesn't let Kim choose. I feel really weird talking about myself in the third person, but that's okay. So what could Reiko do instead? So number one, I did ask her a yes/no question. I didn't wait for a response, but another thing I could do is to offer choices or response options, right? So if you want these slides, come back and look at this again. Another thing we can do is just give 2 choices, right? Depending on your child, we might want to start with 2 choices. Sometimes we want to start with 2 choices and a something else. Sometimes it's more choices. Totally depends on your child and how many items they can sort of process. And why is it important to give choices? I don't know if you've seen this, but this is called the Communication Bill of Rights. There's a lot of different formats. I really like this one. It's really cute. And it has a lot of illustrations of people who use AAC. And this is, I have the right to make my own friends and build social relationships. Google this, pause this video, take a read of that. But I want to point out this thing right here. Okay, this picture says, to make choices from meaningful options. This is not just a fun thing we can do, right? Everybody has the right to make choices from meaningful options. So we need to make sure that we're providing these choices to our AAC users. A lot of the time, we kind of like go through routines and just make assumptions, right? I might, in a dressing routine, getting dressed in the morning, getting dressed to go outside, I might just make some decisions on how that's going to play out and just kind of like do it, right? This is going to get things done faster. And sometimes faster is fine, but what if we take the time to really give choices within our routines? What happens then? So in getting dressed, it might be, sometimes that, there's two socks and I'm just going to put them both on. But what if I took a step back and said, okay, which sock do you want first? Should we do socks first or pants first? Should we do a red shirt or an orange shirt? What if we provided more options? Same with snacks, right? I might say, okay, we're going to eat apples now. Yeah, there was a comment here about independence. Yeah, absolutely. So independence is so important for our AAC users, right? For everyone. And so I might decide the order that things are going to be eaten. I might be like, it's snack time. You're going to have your apple now. And then at lunchtime, you're going to have your sandwich, and then you will have your cookies. And I might be making a lot of options in those situations, I might be making a lot of assumptions and a lot of decisions in those situations. You might not even think of it as making decisions. But as we go through these examples, start thinking about how many opportunities that neurotypical kids have to make decisions within these examples. Same with coloring. I might just say, here's a paper, here's a crayon, there you go. I might just decide that we're going to work on a specific book. I might decide whether you get a fork or a spoon. And I might be making decisions around how a game is played and which game we're playing. So as we think about this, we're realizing there's a lot of decisions made across the day. They're sort of what I call like nothing decisions, like they're inconsequential. They're not going to change the flow of the day, but I'm taking the lead on those. And so the routines are really completed for the AAC user, right? We might be working on a little bit of independence within those routines, but not necessarily providing a lot of choice in those routines. What I mean by that is maybe they're learning to pull their socks up, right? So they're learning that physical movement, but they're not being provided with choices about like which socks are we putting on and that kind of thing. And again, assumptions are being made that this is the way that the AAC user wants to be doing things. So how do I do this? First of all, we're going to start with two choices, right? If you've been providing choices already, maybe you want to provide more choices, like 3 or 4, depends on how many things you can hold. Also, providing the option to choose something else. Like maybe I've given 2 options and you're not interested in either. We're going to then say, oh, maybe we want something different. We're going to name both choices. We're not going to say, for example, do you want this one or this one, right? We're going to say, do you want the shaker or the pen? We're going to wait, which we already talked about last week. And then we're going to give them what they choose. So say, for example, we're in music and I've said, do you want a shaker or a pen? And they choose the pen. Well, I'm going to give them the pen, right? I'm not going to say, no, you're wrong. You made the wrong choice. Take the shaker, right? We're going to say, take the one you choose. If you're a little bit worried that they're going to choose the wrong one, then give them an errorless choice, right? So we might say, do you want the shaker or I don't have another instrument here. We're going to pretend that this is a rain stick. Do you want a shaker or a rain stick? Either one is perfectly fine, but now we've provided a choice, provided an opportunity for communication, and both are right answers. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this example already. So within dressing, right, we could say, which one do you want to put on first? Which do you want right or left? We could have a bucket of socks and just say, pick 2, right? It doesn't matter that the socks don't match. Not really, right? At the end of the day, this is not going to change their day a whole lot other than giving them a sense of sort of control and power, at least over small parts of their day. When it comes to snack, some kids have very distinct lunch foods, right? Like we might have a stew or a soup or something like that. Some kids are grazers and they have a whole bunch of, you've seen those, like those little bento boxes where there's a bunch of different sections and there's like sausages and grapes and all sorts of things. Is it a big deal that they eat their sausages at 10 o'clock at their recess instead of at their lunchtime? Often it's not a big deal. So let them choose. Like, it's just me that has decided that this is a lunch food and something else is a snack food, right? The kid doesn't care. And as long as their belly is full, that's really what matters. And giving a choice and providing that opportunity is a huge opportunity and very, very important for our kids and teens. When it comes to doing something creative like art, we can give examples of choices. And in this way, we can teach colors, right? So we can say, do you want green or do you want blue? Do you want a marker or do you want a pen, right? We can give lots of different choices. Do you want the paste, like the glue paste, or do you want a glue stick? Whichever one. And again, there's no right answer. Maybe the rest of the class is using crayons and my friend's going to use a marker. That is absolutely okay. When it comes to books, this is where I see it too, right? Like, it's time to do work. Here you go. This is the work you're going to do. But, like sometimes we can have like 2 books and give an option between 2 books. Another thing that I've done with kids I work with is, which one do we do first? So that there's a certain number of activities that we want to do. So you might just say, okay, so we're going to do this one first and then this one. Or sorry, the student might say that we're going to do this one first and then this one. And then I usually put them down in order on the desk and we kind of go from left to right and complete our activities in order that they've chosen, because it's not a big deal, right? Fork and spoon. I was once in a conversation with some people and we were talking about what is the correct utensil to use with salads. And this is actually there's more debate than you'd think. So it was fork or spoon or chopsticks. And I'm definitely on the side of like, forks are the wrong utensil for salads. I think that spoons and chopsticks work way better. And so when I think about this, when I'm working with my kiddos too, sometimes we're like, okay, here you go. Here's a bowl of soup and here's a spoon. But what if you gave a choice between a fork and a spoon and they were like, oh, wait, this doesn't work? That provides another, this is an example where there's a right and a wrong, right? But maybe they choose the fork, you give them a fork and they're like, oh, wait, that doesn't work for the soup, right? But maybe they like it. I don't know, who knows, right? But you could also do a small and a big spoon. Who knows? My husband has a special fork he likes to eat with. I don't understand the difference, but he definitely does. And it's important that we give these choices, right? Again, the game. Sometimes we're like, oh, you liked this game last time, let's pull it out again, right? But what if we gave a choice? What if you had a big bookcase full of games? Would you pick the exact same game every single time? Maybe you're someone that does. Maybe you're someone that chooses the same game 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time you choose something new. What about the kid you work with? What about the AAC user? Are they somebody that 90% of the time would choose the same game, but maybe this is the 10% of the time where they want to choose a different activity? We need to be providing choices in order to learn that about our kids, right? I think there's a lot of assumption that they want to do the same game the same way every time, and some kids do, but some kids don't. But also some kids don't want to do it the same way 100% of the time. They just want it that way 90% of the time, right? So we need to provide some opportunities and choices for kids to have that sort of control. And visual schedules. I have a visual schedule here. And so I think that a lot of the time what happens is people say, okay, first we're going to have snack and then we're going to go outside. I've decided it's that way and that's what's going to happen. But what would happen if we said, okay, first we're going to have a snack, but today you get to have a choice. Do you want to go out? Do you want to go outside or do you want to go to the gym? Right? And so maybe snack is the routine we have to get done, and then we get a choice, right? And then, oh, today we're going to choose outside. Another thing is like maybe we have this, first book, and then you get to make a choice. And maybe there's a bucket of choice activities, and they can choose whatever they want for their break, right? Who says that their break has to be a walk? So that's another way that I build choice into my clients' days. And then what? You've provided the choice, now what? This is actually exactly the same as what we talked about last time. We're going to acknowledge any communication as meaningful. Some kids are going to understand this choice very naturally because you've already been providing choices, right? And they might point or they might reach. Some kids aren't going to get this at first, and so they might just look. And that you're going to acknowledge that communication as meaningful. And then you're going to model a word on the AAC system, right? So you're going to say, in this case, it's probably going to be want, right? So, oh, I want the apple. Now, why are we doing this? We're teaching AAC users that their communication is powerful, their communication has meaning, and their communication can change their environment. I also, I think that it's important for us, it's essential for us to provide choices to give kids a little bit of control over their life. I think that there's a lot of decisions made for kids, right? They go to school, all kids, right? Even neurotypical kids. You go to school, you have to do this, this, and this, and then there's recess, and we decide all the times and like where they need to be when. But within those routines, neurotypical kids are provided with tons and tons of opportunities to sort of individualize the day, right? And we need the AAC users to have those same opportunities. So your homework for the week, create opportunities for choices throughout the day. Maybe you're already providing choices, but think about additional choices you provide throughout the day. Once you provide the choice, wait for the communication and then model. And then think about when I model, when I provide choices, what does your child or student do? What does the AAC user do? One thing I'm wondering about, which I often see, is sometimes we see some behavioral communication that is protesting, right? Like, I don't want to do this and taking off. Does that start to reduce as you start implementing choices? Sometimes, yes, right? Sometimes there's just like small avoidant behaviors, right? Like just not engaging in things and things like that. Do kids engage better when they're provided with choices? I'm going to say sometimes yes for that as well. I haven't shown you this, but some of you probably have already seen it. So this is about communicative functions, right? And what I mean by that is the reasons we communicate. For a lot of AAC users, the communication partners tend to focus a lot on requesting, right? And when we set up communication opportunities and wait, when we provide choices and wait, that's all sort of request based, right? And that's okay. But I just want you to think about this as you go along providing these opportunities. We also need to do things like commenting, right? And expressing opinions. So we might say things like, oh, I'm going to pull out my trusty pen and shaker. Oh, you chose the egg. Yeah, you're telling me I want the egg. Yeah, I like the egg. And we want to be modeling that kind of stuff as well. And then we might also say, oh, and this pen, I don't like that pen. So we need to be modeling those kinds of answers as well. And also, I'm thinking, which one should I pick? And commenting and sort of modeling that sort of like processing and that, yeah, I wonder about these things too. So your core vocabulary for the week, things I want you to think about, like, it's a great commenting word, right? So as you're providing these choices, talk about liking and not liking the different options. And again, if your AAC user is able to say, either speaking or through their AAC, maybe they say red or big or apple, you can then add a word to that, add like to that, right? Oh, I like the apple. I like red. I like the big one. Mia likes it. Good is also a great one for commenting and expressing opinions as well. Like good, So if they say like or want, you could add good to that. Like, good, want, good. Again, if your AAC user is in a single word place, then leave it at the single words. That is absolutely okay and totally what we want you to do. Kim says, model what you like and don't like too. Yeah, great suggestion. So I might say, you know what? I like the shaker. Shake, shake, shake. And Reiko doesn't like the pen. Yeah. I think it's important for kids to know that people have likes and dislikes, and you can have them too. A lot of the time, we stop presenting the things that kids don't like because we kind of just learn over time, oh, they never want that one. But it's good for kids to be around things they don't like and say, no, 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 I definitely don't like that. Thank you very much. That's all the content I have for you today. We will see you next week. If you have any questions, I'm going to stop recording now. And if you want to pop in and ask your questions, Kim and I will stay on until the end. Thank you everyone for coming.